Welcome back everyone to another Every Point in the Series video. So today we're going to be talking about the big boys, the Akatsuki. I've already done Obito versus Itachi and Itachi versus Pain, but I have yet to cover a Pain versus Obito timeline fight, so here we are. So as usual, I'll go by each respective versions of the characters and see how they might stack up against each other and see who comes out on top most in the video. But real quick, if you haven't yet, please be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Leave a comment below and if you enjoy the video or if you disagree with it or not. Regardless, I appreciate the support that y'all have given the past few months. Y'all are the best subscribers. Never forget that. I hope you do enjoy the video, and with all that said, let's get started. So the first versions we're going to start with are Kid Obito versus Kid Nagato. Kid Obito as in right after he unlocks the 2-Tomo Sharingan, and Kid Nagato as in right after his training with Jiraiya is complete. So if you watched my Team 7 versus the Big 3 video, I said in that video that Kid Obito is depicted a couple different ways. For starters, he's a Chunin, so in terms of all-around combat, he's got to be pretty decent or, adept, right? But then in the Kakashi Gaiden chapters, we see that despite being in the Third Great Ninja War for at least a little bit, he's shown to not be too reliable when it comes to fighting. He's even seen crying when the Stone Ninja almost attacks him, and Minato even calls him out on this later on. But then, when he and Kakashi are fighting in the Kamui dimension during the war arc, we see that in the flashbacks that Obito is able to spar and box with Kakashi, who at this point in the flashback is likely high tuning, like reaching to low jonin level. Now, in both instances, there are a couple of ways of looking at them. For one thing, in all fairness, this could have been just a one-time thing, like maybe it was just a sudden shock of the Stone Ninja coming out from underground that scared Obito or something. But considering that his nickname is the Crybaby Ninja, I'm not too sure this is the case. Besides, the way that Minato speaks to him here, it seems as though this is an ongoing problem for Obito. When it comes to Obito sparring with Kakashi and how it seems as though he's doing way better than how he's depicted in the Third War, while I'm not taking his performance away, I do think it's worth mentioning that he's fighting someone he knows rather than some random enemy in a war. But all that does change once he unlocks his Sharingan, as he's seen fighting relative to a one-eyed Jonin Kakashi and was actually putting in some work. Now, when it comes to Kid Nagato, he is also a bit tough to scale, but in a different way, which is that we get little to no feats during his kid days. We do see that before his training with Jiraiya that he was able to take out a renegade ninja that looks to be either Chunin or above. And then soon after, he, Konan, and Yahiko start their training with Jiraiya. Now, it's not known what all Nagato has in his arsenal at this point. When it comes to the Rinnegan abilities, he can use them in theory, but we don't know to what extent he can do it in combat. Similarly, when it comes to nature affinities, we know he can use all 5 nature transformations, but we don't know specifically what those jutsu are apart from 1 or 2, wind style moves in the manga. The best scaling I can get for Nagato, in my opinion, would be anywhere from high tuning to low jonin. As even though he's obviously not given an official rank, Jiraiya seems pretty confident that they can take care of themselves when their training is complete. And personally, I don't think he'd hypothetically let a team of Genin go off on their own. This one's going to be a little bit tricky since, again, like I said earlier, we have little feats to go off of for both of these characters, at least at the point at which I'm talking about, and they scale pretty close to each other. I think I'd have to go 50-50 with this fight, with giving a slight edge to Nagato through versatility. Outside of his 5 nature transformations, if he is able to use any of the Rinnegan abilities, especially ones like Jutsu Absorption or Almighty Push, it'll give Nagato an edge over Obito here. But since we don't have any really speed feats for Nagato here, I could also see it just as likely Obito having the precog necessary to take this fight. So this next round is going to be Rampage Obito, meaning the one that destroyed the Hidden Mist Anbu platoon, versus Rampage Nagato, which is the one that quote-unquote took on Hanzo after Yahiko was killed. This round is actually similar to the first one, to be honest, because both have similar feats, which is being able to take on numerous Anbu Black Op members while not even being in a stable state of mind. Now, there is a couple of differences between these two feats. The first thing is that in Nagato's case, it's not really shown how many Nagato actually had to encounter and how many he actually took out. But given what we see in the manga, it appears that he either took out all of them or most of them at the very least. The second difference is that even though they were both in Rampage mode, Nagato at least seems to be more consciously aware of what he's doing. especially when it comes to combat. He even speaks to Konan in complete sentences. And while I'm sure Obito is aware that he's beating the brakes off these missed platoon members, I would say, based off the chapter we see, Obito is less in control of himself than Nagato is, given that Obito is subconsciously activating Kamui to avoid the attacks thrown by the Anbu unit. Now, Obito obviously has Kamui and Wood Style here, and his physical strength is actually pretty impressive as he's able to break through the Anbu members' skulls with just his bare fist alone. Nagato has all the Rinnegan abilities plus the Geto statue. I'm gonna be real with y'all. I hope y'all understand when I say that I cannot come up with a concrete answer as to who wins this. Like, it is very close in my opinion. I'm almost tempted to say it's 50-50 and just be done with it and move on. Now, I'm obviously not going to do that to y'all. But here's what I will say. If Nagato lands the Soul Dragon on Obito in a split second when Obito isn't phasing due to him going berserk and not being in full control, then it's a wrap and it's done for. But if he doesn't, then it's GG for Nagato. Because depending on how long he uses the Soul Dragon for, which it didn't seem too long in the manga, then Nagato will be left in a weakened state for a little bit. I've seen some people actually say that the Soul Dragon can still work on Obito even while he's phasing, similar to the arguments people have also made about the Totsuka Blade working on Obito in the same situation. But the thing is, the Soul Dragon is in the plane that Nagato is in. And when Obito phases his body, that part of his body is leaving the plane. So it's not really coming into contact with Obito at all. I mean, you might as well say that that part of Obito isn't even there. So while I do understand the concept of the argument, I personally think that if Obito is able to phase through the dragon, it won't affect him. Now, again, like I said, this battle is really, really close. Obito's physical damage could do a lot to Nagato. As we see later on in the war arc, he could do something similar to how Guru did to Kari, and just impale her with Wood Style and make a whole bunch of Wood Style spikes go into the back of Nagato. The thing is though, if that is the case, while I'm certain it will eventually kill Nagato, being that Nagato is an Uzumaki and we see Uzumaki have a crazy life force, I mean Kushina had the entire Nine Tails extracted from her and she still lived for quite a while afterwards, Nagato might still have the strength necessary to kill Obito. I'm not entirely sure. I mean, like I said, it could go 50-50. I could even see it ending in a draw, especially with the case I just pitched to y'all. So if I had to give it this to somebody, I would probably still give it to Obito because, again, even if Obito is in berserk mode, if he's just still using Kamui left and right and is still able to actually still find moments in the fight to damage Nagato, especially with Wood Style, it might be done. Now, I know Nagato has the Geto statue, which is definitely going to be a problem for Obito, especially with Obito not, clearly thinking. But again, the Geto statue doesn't really mean anything if he's not able to hit Obito. So if we take off the feats from Obito in the manga in the Blood Mist Village fight, it just seems like Obito is spamming Kamui. Like there's really not much, instances where Nagato can get a hit on. But conversely, the fact that he's not in control of himself, it could be just as likely Nagato can hit him in a split second where he doesn't phase. So 50-50, but with a very, 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 very slight edge to Obito when it comes to just pure luck.
Now, real quick, giving credit where credit is due, Nagato did force Hanzo to retreat, and this was the same guy that fought all three Sani at the same time just a few years prior. And what makes this even better for Nagato's case is that, by the looks of it in the manga, Hanzo just took it one look at what Nagato is capable of and decided to peace out. Like, he didn't even attempt to fight him. So I'm willing to believe with this Hanzo/Sani scaling you could make for Nagato, and the Rinnegan abilities, and the Geto statue, and the Soul Dragon, and his life force, that he might still be able to shut this Obito down. Like I said, if Obito does win, it's extremely lucky. And real quick, I've kind of seen some arguments, just in case those people who are maybe thinking I'm hyping Nagato's life force thing up too much. Like, I've seen some arguments that say, like, because Nagato is a further descendant of the Uzumaki clan, that his life force isn't that impressive. But in the Pain arc, Konan even remarks that Nagato's chakra is pretty low, and Nagato still had enough chakra to revive all those he revived in Elite Village, and impart some final words to Naruto. So I think his life force is pretty extensive. Moving on to the next round, since there really isn't a version of Nagato that will really coincide with Yellow Mask Obito, I'm just going to skip him and move right on to Orange Mask Obito. Plus, I mean, Yellow Mask Obito has the 9 tails, which already makes him incredibly tough for most of the verse to beat anyway, so yeah. Anyway, Orange Mask Obito versus the 6 Paths of Pain. Now, right off the bat, there's a statement and an implication you can use to decide who would win this. During Naruto's fight with Pain, Minato straight up tells Naruto, yeah, like, Pain is tough, but the guy in the mask is the real problem. From this, it's easy to depict that Minato considers Obito more dangerous than Pain. And right before the war arc, Kabuto seeks out Obito and wants him to join forces, and pretty much ends up threatening Obito with 5 dead Akatsuki members, including Nagato. Obito still says, and what if I refuse? Implying Obito was confident enough that he could deal with Kabuto and the Edo Akatsuki members. Now I know that with the second one, it's not a concrete thing to use because Obito could have just meant that he could have been calm because he could teleport to Kamui. But I think that there's something interesting to note though. Kabuto literally found out where Obito's hideout was. Not to mention, he still had information on Obito and the Akatsuki. So it's likely Obito considered Kabuto to be a serious liability and needed to take him out. So from this, you could infer that Obito actually did plan on fighting Kabuto even after he summoned the Akatsuki members. I'm aware that not everyone uses these examples as a way of actually deciding who would win this, but I still want to bring them up just in case. Now, the first thing to cover in this round is going to be intel. I'm pretty sure it's safe to say that Obito is going to have a pretty decent amount of knowledge on Pain's abilities, to say the least. He's likely already going to be aware of all the abilities of the Rinnegan, and probably already knows which Pains to take out first. On the other hand, it's up for debate whether or not Obito would have the intel on Obito that he needs. At first, I would assume not, as Obito, despite being around Pain quite a bit, seems like he'd be a little bit shrewd in what he's capable of. However, Konan notes to Obito during their fight that she carefully observed him and his Kamui over the years, and she made a plan accordingly, which would have worked if Obito had not had Izanagi. So I think in all fairness we can give knowledge to Pain here as well. The problem is, the series does a better job highlighting how more useful having intel on Pain is rather than Obito. Reason being is that even though people will eventually figure out how Kamui works, unless you're as fast as Minato, or unless you have the exact counter to Kamui like Kakashi does, and unless you have time to set up something crazy like Konan did, Kamui is still going to be almost impossible to get around. With having knowledge on Pain's abilities, the element of surprise is taken out of the equation and his opponents being caught off guard is taken off the table. So to start this whole thing off, Pain will have an edge in terms of numbers and versatility. Even with the intel of the Rinnegan's abilities, they are still pretty tough to deal with. I think the biggest aspect that determines how the fight might go is speed. I'm going to point out a couple things that most people tend to either forget and or overlook. The first thing is that Obito is able to phase from underground and sneak up on people in order to pull them into Kamui. We see this during the war arc when he tries to do it to Naruto, and we also see it in his fight with Fu and Tornage. Speaking of Fu and Tornage, this fight applies to the second thing that most people overlook, and that is that Obito doesn't need to touch people in order to suck them into Kamui. As shown in his fight with Fu and Tornage, he sucks in Tornage by touching him, but then right after he phases beneath the ground and reappears from the ground and is able to pull in Fu inches away from him without establishing physical contact. Now, this is going to be a problem for Pain, because Obito can literally do that to each one of the paths and pull them in, and by extension, cut off the chakra connection that Nagato has with each Pain. But the question becomes, could Obito actually pull this off? Which is why I said speed might play a huge factor in there. So when it comes to travel speed, Pain hasn't shown anything too crazy. The best thing that I could think of is being able to outrun the Six Tails Naruto, which is nothing to sleep on. Obito, however, has a speed feat that's likely even better, which is being able to teleport into Onuki's Death Cube, grab Sasuke, and teleport out before they're both disintegrated. When it comes to reaction time, the best thing I could think of for Pain is the Prayer Path being able to come in off screen and off panel and catch and absorb the Rasen Shuriken thrown by Sage Naruto, which plays into Pain's vision being extended through the paths, which will definitely help with fighting Obito here. Another pretty impressive reaction feat is getting the Asura Path to intercept Kakashi's Raikiri, again coming in off screen and off panel before he's able to hit the Diva Path. When it comes to Obito's reaction time, right after he teleported out of Onuki's Death Cube, the Raikage attempted to blitz him at point blank range, and Obito phased right through his attack with no trouble. In terms of travel speed, the Raikage is definitely faster than each one of the paths of Pain. When it comes to speed and reaction time, I would say Obito has the edge over Pain even with his vision being extended. Now, an advantage that Pain has here is being able to summon the animal summons, as that will not only help with being able to apply more pressure on Obito, but it'll also extend the field of vision even more. So Obito might actually have a difficult time getting each path to Pain off the battlefield one by one. But with having intel, Obito's obviously going to be aware that he needs to take out the animal path first, and once he gets said path into Kamui, Pain cannot get them back. However, it might still be a bit difficult depending on how many summons Pain decides to pull out at once. Because even if he gets the animal path into Kamui, there's a chance that the animal summons might still be on the battlefield. If it was just one or two like he did in the War Arc, then it shouldn't be too much of an issue for Obito to still maneuver around. Now I guess what Obito could do is after he's gotten the animal path into Kamui, maybe warp himself into Kamui and actually destroy the path while it's cut off from Nagato, thereby possibly making the summons disappear. I'm not 100% on that, so take that with a grain of salt. Plus, worst case, Obito can exploit the animal summons the same way Itachi did in the War Arc and throw kunais and shuriken in their eyes or something. Outside of the animal path and the diva path, Obito should be able to deal with the rest of the paths of Pain relatively easy. For example, his physical strength alone should be able to take out the Asura path. I mean, Obito blocked Suigetsu's attack with one arm, and he did it like he was the easiest thing he's ever done. The human path and the Naraka path aren't even going to be able to touch Obito, much less get a hold of him long enough to kill him. And if we assume that Predator Path might be quick enough to avoid a pull-in from Obito, Obito could just use Taijutsu to deal with him. So the only one that's left is the Diva Path, and right off the bat, Chibaku Tensei is obviously not working. Universal Pull is also off the table, leaving Almighty Push to be his only actual way of damaging Obito, which I actually do think is something to consider. If Obito tries to warp from underground in order to pull Pain in, and Pain has enough reaction time, he could possibly use Shinra Tensei as Obito is trying to pull him in, as he becomes solid when he tries to pull things into Kamui. Now, what I'm about to say is going to sound so specific, but I'm trying not to downplay Pain's reaction time. But this whole Shinra Tensei Kamui counter thing might all depend if Pain has to raise his arm in order to use Shinra Tensei. Because that split second of not having to raise his arm in order to push Obito back can make a big difference in determining whether or not Pain gets pulled in. And I think I have to go on the side that he does have to, because in his fight with Kakashi, after Kakashi restricts his arms with the chains, that's when Pain becomes a bit worried and has the Asura path intercept the attack instead. Granted, it could have just meant the 5-second cooldown time hadn't run out yet, so it doesn't explicitly mean that it was due to Pain not being able to move his arms. If he does have to move his arms, then it might end up coming to the same case as it was for Fu. Because if he doesn't, then he'll be able to at least have a better chance of avoiding the Kamui pull-in, and at the same time damaging Obito. But if Obito had the reaction time to phase through an attack from the right Kage and Onagi's Death Cube, then I think it'll be just as likely Obito will have enough time to stop the Kamui pull-in in order to phase through the attack. Plus, even if he does take damage, depending on how strong the Shinra Tensei is, like unless it's anywhere comparable to the size it was on the Leaf Village, Obito might not take too much damage. At least not enough to where he, can't retreat for a second. I mean, he survived an explosion from Konan at point blank, and he only really lost an arm and part of his mask. I'm sorry if that was a very specific, part of the fight to go over. I just really didn't want to downplay Pain, and I wanted to try to think of a way he'd be able to beat Obito. But all in all, I think Obito probably would win this one like 7 or 8 out of 10 times. And now we have the final round, White Mask Rinnegan Obito versus Edo Nagato. And just for the sake of fairness, this is going to be Nagato at full power and not in his crippled state. So for this final round, I'm going to do it in 2 separate scenarios. The first is going to be Obito with the Jinchuriki versus Nagato, and then Obito with just 1v1. Now in the first scenario, Obito is obviously going to have the edge in terms of numbers, but Nagato does still have his summons. Now it's never really stated or shown how many Nagato can summon at one time, but if he's able to summon 2 while he's in his cripple state, then at the very least he should be able to summon 4 at once. But just for the sake of conversation, let's say Nagato is able to summon all of them at once. Then it'll definitely help reduce the numbers problem. The thing is though, even with the animal summons, Obito should still be able to deal with them, whether he's using the Jinchuriki in their normal forms, B2 forms, or Biju forms. The Biju forms are self-explanatory. I don't think anyone's going to really contest that 5 Biju are going to be enough. But if we say that Obito didn't want to expend the chakra in doing so, we can restrict that. And now that I think about it, using the Jinchuriki in their V2 forms might actually backfire, as it may end up providing Nagato with an opportunity to absorb their chakra, which Obito will be aware of it. So Obito might just opt to use them in their normal forms. Now, setting aside each one's respective abilities such as Roshi's Lava Style or Yagura's Mirror Jutsu, ones like Han might be fast enough to straight up blitz a couple of the animals just like he did with KCM Naruto. Not to mention the possibility of exploiting the summons through kunais and shuriken still applies here too. Obito himself and the Jinchuriken could throw kunais and shuriken at the summon's eyes to blind them and help take them out of the equation. Now before y'all say it, I'm not saying it's guaranteed that the kunais and shuriken aspect is going to work every time, so before y'all say I'm hyping that up too much, just keep that in mind. I'm bringing it up as a possibility. Also, this is something I didn't even mention in the previous round, but Obito still has giant shuriken that he can throw out of Kamui at any time. And while that might not seem like a big deal initially, Obito threw these shuriken with enough force to cut off some of Gyuki's tentacles, so the shuriken are no joke. Now I don't want to downplay Nagato here, because he did fight Naruto and Killer Bee at the same time and was about to kill both of them with little trouble. But the thing is though, Obito was also fighting Naruto and Killer Bee at the same time, plus Kakashi and Guy. And from the looks of it, Obito didn't really have trouble dealing with them until Kakashi started to figure out how Kamui works. So I'll give an example of how this might go. Say Obito decides to try and sneak up on Nagato and pull him into Kamui. Well, I see it totally likely that Nagato can react and counterattack. Obito, conversely, should have the reaction time necessary to avoid said counterattack. Plus, if Nagato does what he did against Naruto and Bee and actually grabs Obito, I mean, that's just going to leave an opportunity for Obito to pull Nagato in right there. Like, Obito seemed pretty confident that as soon as he touched either Naruto or Guy, they'd be pulled in and done for. And to be honest, this could also apply to the 1v1 scenario too. Yes, Nagato's animals will be tougher for Obito to deal with without the Jinchuriki, but then Obito still has a Geto statue, and at the very least that'll provide a decent distraction in order to take on Nagato 1v1. Now I know Nagato does have the Soul Steal and he can use that against Obito, and if he's quick enough he could take the win, but again, conversely, if Obito is just as quick, he can use Kamui to pull in Nagato while he's doing so. And you might even be able to argue Obito could do the same thing. He can reach over and pull Nagato's soul out too. Though with Nagato being an Uzumaki, his life force might be too strong to make that happen. Like, it might be tougher to pull it out. I don't know. I'm not too sure if that's how it works, honestly. And as we established earlier, Chibaku Tensei and Universal Pull aren't working. As a matter of fact, if Nagato attempts to pull Obito, Obito can phase right through him entirely and turn around and pull him into Kamui just like that. Now, there is an argument of being able to reverse summon out using the Naraka path, but with Kamui being a sealed dimension, I don't think it'll work in getting Nagato back into the real world. So with this one, I know like it might seem like it took less time to cover than it did the 6 Paths of Pain, but that's because Obito doesn't have much to deal with even with the animal summons, as the 6 Paths of Pain plus the animal summons provide a lot more, utility. And with Orange Masks, Obito, he also doesn't have the Geto statue to help in that respect, so he's got to do it all on his own. With this one, though, he has either the Jinchuriki or the Geto statue to help reduce the numbers problem, and then just taking on Nagato 1v1. And even though Nagato has all these crazy abilities and an absurd amount of chakra, Obito is still as difficult to deal with as all get out. So with this one, I'd say Obito with the Jinchuriki takes it like 9 or 10 out of 10 times. Without, it's a little bit tougher, and with Nagato's reaction time feats, I see it just as likely that he might be able to pull out Obito's soul, but with Obito being able to just phase right through in enough time, I still see it. I mean, Obito will still take this one like 7, maybe 8 out of 10 times. And so I think some of y'all will probably still think I'm being too generous to Nagato here. But there y'all have it. There's the rest of the video. I'm not going to do Jubito versus Nagato because I think we're going to be, it's literally, yeah, he wins. But yeah, that's the end of the video. Thank you all for watching. Hope y'all did enjoy the video. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. Let me know in the comments if you think I'm not giving Nagato enough credit here and being able to deal with any versions of Obito. I understand that Nagato is crazy. I understand that Pain is crazy, but Obito is broken. So, but thank you all for watching all the way to the end. Make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Click the bell for more notifications. Until my next one, LightningSnow, out.